You don't need to go anywhere tonight. You don't need to solve anything, plan anything, or figure anything out. Right now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your body get heavy. Let your mind begin to slow. Tonight, we're going to spend some time with one of the most quietly revolutionary books ever written, Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. If you've read it, this will feel like a warm return to something you already know, deep down. If you haven't, by the time we're done tonight, you'll carry something with you. Something simple but profound. Into your sleep. Let's begin. Eckhart Tolle didn't set out to write a self-help book. In fact, for much of his early life, he was deeply, almost unbearably miserable. By his late 20s, he was living under a cloud of anxiety and depression so heavy that he described waking up each morning feeling dread. A formless, suffocating terror about simply being alive. Then one night, at 29 years old, something shifted. He woke at 3 a.m. with an overwhelming sense that he could not live with himself any longer. And then a strange thought broke through the darkness. He wondered, if I cannot live with myself, who is the I, and who is the myself? That question cracked something open. The suffering fell away. He sat there in profound peace, watching the room as if for the first time. He later described it as a state of bliss, formless, spacious, and absolutely present. He spent years after that sitting on park benches, smiling, simply being. People around him thought he was a little odd, but slowly, people started approaching him, wanting to know what he had discovered. The Power of Now, published in 1997, is his attempt to put into words what happened to him that night, and how any of us can touch the same truth without needing a crisis to get there. The book is not a story. It's not a self-help plan with steps and checklists. It's more like a guided reminder, gentle nudges back to something you've always had access to, but almost certainly forgotten. That thing is this moment, right now, the only moment that ever truly exists. Here is the core of everything Tolle wants to tell you. You are not your thoughts. Read that again, slowly. You are not your thoughts. Most of us spend our entire lives fully identified with the stream of thoughts running through our minds. We believe we are that voice in our heads, the one that worries, that judges, that replays conversations, that plans, criticizes, fears, and narrates every moment of our lives. Tolle calls this the compulsive thinker, the mind that cannot stop, the voice that never goes quiet. He asks us to consider something radical. What if that voice is not you? What if you are the one listening to it? Try this right now, lying where you are. Just notice your next thought. Don't try to stop it. Don't try to create it. Just wait for it to arise. Did you notice something? That brief gap, that moment of quiet alertness before the thought arrived, that was you, the awareness, the observer. That is what Tolle calls presence, or being. And he says that space, that gap, is where peace lives. The mind is a tool, an extraordinary tool. But most of us have forgotten that we are meant to use the mind. We have instead let the mind use us. And here's the thing about the mind. It has a very particular obsession. It is almost never content to be where it is. It wants to live somewhere else, usually somewhere that doesn't exist, in the past, or in the future. Think about where your mind spends most of its time. When you're anxious, it's almost always somewhere in the future, projecting forward, imagining worst cases, rehearsing conversations that haven't happened, preparing for disasters that may never come. When you're sad, bitter, or full of regret, The mind is almost always in the past, replaying what happened, wishing things had gone differently, carrying old wounds into every new moment. Tolle's observation is simple but stunning. The present moment is the only moment you can ever actually experience. The past is a memory, a thought happening now. The future is an anticipation, a thought happening now. The only time anything has ever actually happened to you, the only time you have ever truly been alive, is now. He calls psychological time, this habit of living mentally in the past or future, the primary source of human suffering, not the events themselves, not the hard things that happen, but our compulsive resistance to what is, and our compulsive escape into what was, or what might be. Think about the last time you experienced genuine joy. Not the excitement of anticipating something, not the nostalgia of remembering something, but actual, felt, alive joy. It was now. It was always now. A sunset, a burst of laughter, the warmth of a hand, the smell of rain. These moments pierce through because they break us out of our mental time travel and deposit us directly into the present. Tolle says, what if you could live there more of the time? Not by forcing anything, not by effort or discipline, but simply by noticing, again and again, that this, right here, right now, is actually okay. Now Tolle introduces one of his most evocative concepts, the pain body. He describes it as an accumulated field of old emotional pain that lives in the body, a kind of energetic residue made up of every grief, every humiliation, every unprocessed hurt you've carried since childhood and beyond. Most people have a pain body. Some are heavier than others. And here's what makes it so tricky. The pain body is not passive. It gets hungry. It feeds on more pain. So it subtly, unconsciously, shapes your thinking and your behavior in ways designed to create more suffering so it can feed. Ever notice how sometimes you seem to pick fights for no reason? Or find yourself going down a spiral of dark, self-critical thoughts that feel almost compulsive? Or how certain conversations with certain people always seem to escalate the same way? Tolle would say that's the pain body being activated. And the antidote is not to fight it, suppress it, or analyze it endlessly. The antidote is the light of awareness. When you can feel the pain body arising, feel the tightness in your chest, the surge of emotion, the familiar pull toward anger or self-pity, and instead of becoming it, you watch it. Something extraordinary happens. It loses its grip. You can say inwardly, I see you, I feel you, but I am not you. This is not spiritual bypassing. You're not pretending the pain isn't there. You're doing something far more courageous. You're being the witness, the still awareness behind the storm. Tolle says, this is one of the most important things a human being can learn to do. Let's return to what Tolle calls presence, because this is the beating heart of the entire book. Presence is simply this, full, open, non-judgmental awareness of what is happening right now, in your body, your senses, your immediate surroundings, without the overlay of mental commentary. It sounds so simple. And it is. But simple is not the same as easy. Try it now. Feel the weight of your body where you're lying, the texture of what's beneath you, the temperature of the air touching your skin, the rise and fall of your chest. You're not thinking about these things. You're just feeling them. That is presence. And notice, in that moment of pure sensation, there is no problem. There is no anxiety about tomorrow. There is no regret about yesterday. There is just this. Tolle calls this inhabiting the now. And he says it is the doorway to an inner peace that doesn't depend on anything outside you. Not your circumstances, not other people's behavior, not whether your plans work out. He distinguishes between two kinds of acceptance. There is passive resignation, giving up, not caring, and there is true acceptance, a deep, clear-eyed acknowledgement of what is without fighting reality. This second form is not weakness, it is the beginning of power. Because when you stop fighting what is, your energy becomes available. You can act, you can respond, you can even change things, but from a place of presence rather than panic. Tolle spends a great deal of time on the ego. Not the ego in the crude, everyday sense. He means something more fundamental. The ego as the false sense of self that is constructed from thought. Your name, your story, your roles, your opinions, your fears, your image of yourself. All of this is the ego, a kind of mental character that you've been building and defending your whole life, and which you've mistaken for who you actually are. The ego has two core needs: to define itself and to feel superior to, or at least separate from, other egos. This is why so much of human conflict happens. On a personal scale, arguments where we cling to being right. On a social scale, tribalism, us versus them. On a historical scale, wars fought over identities that were ultimately made of thought. The ego also desperately fears its own dissolution. Any threat to its self-concept feels like a threat to life itself. This is why criticism can feel devastating, why failure can feel annihilating, why change, even positive change, can feel so threatening. But here's what Tolle says beneath all of this. You are not the ego. You are the awareness in which the ego arises and passes. You are the sky, not the weather. The ego, like all weather, changes. It can rage, brighten, cloud over, and dissipate. But the sky, the open, clear awareness that you fundamentally are, remains untouched. You don't need to destroy the ego or go to war with it. That would just be ego fighting ego. You simply need to see it, to recognize when it's running the show, and in that recognition, it loses its unconscious grip. One of the most grounded sections of the book deals with relationships. Tolle makes a distinction that is worth sitting with. He talks about the difference between love that is need-based, rooted in the ego's desire to be completed, to be validated, to find itself through another person, and love that flows from presence. Most of what we call romantic love, especially in the early stages, has a lot of ego in it. We fall in love with our projection of a person, our image of who they are. When the projection inevitably collides with the reality of who they actually are, we feel disappointed, even betrayed. He's not being cynical. He's being honest. Because the alternative, love that arises when you are truly present with another person, is something far more durable and far more beautiful. When you are genuinely present with someone, you're not in your head crafting your next response. You're not filtering them through your history or your expectations. You're just here, and they're just here, and something real passes between two human beings. That, Tolle says, is when love is not a transaction, but a state of being. He also addresses conflict in relationships, pointing out that most relationship arguments are really ego battles. Two pain bodies triggering each other. Two false selves demanding recognition. When you can notice that happening in yourself first, you take yourself out of the loop. You can respond rather than react. You can bring space into what might otherwise become heat. This is easier said than done. But even understanding it changes things. Even just once catching yourself mid-reaction and pausing, that's the practice. That moment of conscious choice is what Tolle is pointing toward. Toward the latter part of the book, Tolle guides us inward, not into thought, but into the body itself. He encourages what he calls inner body awareness as a practical anchor to the present moment. The mind loves to wander, but the body is always here, always now. You cannot have a body in the future or a body in the past. Your body is the one thing that cannot leave this moment. So whenever you feel yourself pulled away, into worry, into replay, into noise, you can return to the body. Feel the aliveness in your hands right now, the subtle tingling, the warmth, the sense of energy quietly pulsing. Now feel it in your arms, your chest, your face. Tolle calls this feeling the inner body, and he says it's one of the most direct paths to presence he knows. There's also a teaching here about stillness, not forced stillness, not effortful silence, but the kind of stillness that is the natural background of all experience, the quiet beneath the noise. He says the most important thing is to find the gap between thoughts. Even if the gap lasts 1 second, that's enough. That brief, clear, open space is your true nature peeking through. And the more you find it, even for a moment, the more you remember it exists, the more you can return. Tolle devotes careful attention to the idea of surrender, not the surrender of defeat, not the surrender of giving up on life or ambition or love. He means something more interior, the surrender of resistance. We suffer most not from what happens to us, but from our refusal to accept what has happened. We argue with reality. We say, this shouldn't be. He shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't be here. This isn't fair. And while those reactions are human and understandable, they are also, ultimately, exhausting. Surrender, as Tolle means it, is the deep recognition that this is what is, not approval, not passivity, but radical, clear acceptance of the present moment as it is. And from that acceptance, paradoxically, comes the ability to act with clarity and strength. He uses a beautiful image. Imagine you are caught in quicksand. The more you struggle, the faster you sink. Surrender, going still, is the only thing that actually helps. Inner surrender is the same. When you stop fighting the moment, you discover something unexpected. The moment is actually survivable. In fact, it's often, when met clearly, far less terrible than the resistance to it. It would feel incomplete to close without touching on what Tolle says about time and death, because one of the reasons we resist the present, one of the reasons the mind clings so tightly to the future, is the awareness that time is limited, that everything we love is impermanent. And Tolle meets that fear with something unexpected. He says you have never actually been in time. You have only ever been now. Think about it. Every moment you have ever lived, your earliest memories, your greatest joys, your deepest sorrows, each of them happened in what was, at that time, the present moment. The past is made of present moments. The future, when it arrives, will be a present moment. Time is a concept. The now is the only reality. And if the now is your true home, if awareness rather than the contents of awareness is what you fundamentally are, then what we call death is the ending of the ego, the story, the mental character. But the awareness itself? Tolle suggests that consciousness is prior to form, and therefore not subject to the ending of form. He doesn't ask you to believe this. He asks you to investigate it for yourself, to look within and ask, is there something here that is aware of thoughts without being a thought? Something that watches the mind without being the mind? And if there is, what is that something? So what does Tolle actually want us to do? In many ways, he says nothing. Not the nothing of disengagement, but the nothing of not adding unnecessary mental noise to what is. The practice is not complicated. Notice when you leave the present. Return gently, without judgment. Feel your body. Find the gap. And rest there, even for a moment. That's it. The peace of the now is not something you achieve. It's something you uncover. It was always there, beneath the noise, like the sky beneath the clouds. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to understand it perfectly. You don't have to fix your past or secure your future first. You just have to be here. And here is something worth remembering as you drift off tonight. You've been here your whole life. Every moment of fear, every moment of joy, every ordinary Tuesday, every heartbreak, every sunrise, all of it happened now. You've never actually left. The mind may wander into yesterday or tomorrow. But you, the awareness that you are, has never moved. You are already home. So let your body rest fully now. Let your thoughts pass like clouds you're watching from a great peaceful distance. You don't need to hold on to any of them. You don't need to hold on to anything tonight. You are safe. You are here. You are now.